Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 241. Wow, been doing these for ages. We have a very special guest this evening, but for now, I'm going to start us off with a tune to give people time to join the stream, etc.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wall. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly? Bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give what wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the
That is, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. Chris Gard's a good guy. He's a really good musician. He's on YouTube. Go and check him out. And he's on our side of things politically. Go and check him out, guys. I'm very happy to say we have a very special guest this evening in the shape of Morgoth, but also some other good guests too. Morgoth, how are you going this evening, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me back again. I was just had a bit of an issue with me a bottle of home brew before we went live there, but I'm all settled and cozy now.
Yeah, I was saying to you, Morgoth, before we started, I've had home brew, but I've never made it myself. So cool. But I've certainly had it from mates of mine, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's a sort of thing that once the autumn and the winter comes in, I like to have a batch of home brew to tip along on the weekend.
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah, look, guys, I guess we've got to talk about this two-tier care idea that all British people should have a digital ID card this evening. But I'm more than happy for people to talk about anything else that concerns them. And as always, I'm going to go around basically by the clock. So Morgoth, what's your view on this stuff, man?
I mean, I've done a ton of content. I did a special thing on the Substack yesterday where I put together all of the videos and the writings that I've done on the digital ID. I thought it was going to come in earlier. Like, this is one of them things where it's kind of controversial because back in the COVID days, I was saying this is it. They're going to bring in the digital ID, and it didn't happen. And it just seemed to get mothballed and forgotten about. And everything moved on. And I was like, yeah, maybe I overreacted to it and all of that. And then lo and behold, but I always kept a kind of an eye. A UK column are good at looking at what's going on at a subterranean level in the British state. And
I like those guys, Morgoth. I've followed those guys for years now. Yeah.
And so I was aware that this was still kind of being planned. And when you look at everything else and sort of the way society's changed, it's you can see that everything was like preparing us for this. That, I mean, if you look at the online harms bill, for example, I think you can clearly see that that's been built with a digital ID in mind, where eventually you're going to have a digital ID to log on the internet. And that will also be your age verification. But then you've also got somewhere down the line, all money will just be completely digital. Well, nearly there anyway. Everybody just taps their card or that more and more their phone. And so you can see and then you've got all of this kind of tracking stuff where everybody GPS, what is a satellite tracking, so you can see that bit by bit, we're heading towards a society where the only thing which was missing, the core component of all of this, is an actual formalized digital ID. And so it was as if we just hadn't figured that. Now, I don't know. I thought this was going to come in years ago. I don't know if it was they didn't have the technology or they changed their mind or what was happening. But at any rate, here we are. There's more. I mean, obviously, it's a huge subject. And, you've got Farage has said that he's just going to scrap it straight away. And you've got a massive backlash underway. So it's going to be a big battle. It's going to be one where we see how it plays out. The battle lines have been drawn. And you can see that it's deep state kind of shits like William Hague and what was that Ben Wallace. There's a certain type of person who actually wants this to happen, and they've all got a stink about them. They've all got a kind of deep state stink about them, I think. And let's not forget that it is the brainchild and the great love of Tony Blair himself, nobody's got a bigger stink on him than him. And so, yeah, it's a huge subject. I'll leave it there for now. Let the other lads speak.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree with you more and more. As far as I'm concerned, if you're a patriotic English, a really patriotic English or British person, you've got to be against this. And anyone who isn't is an enemy, as far as I'm concerned. Anyone who's in favor of this is an enemy.
Yeah.
1 second, Mitch, and I'll pass it on to you, mate. The only time Britain has ever had ID cards was during World War II, and in 1952, everyone in Britain was very, very happy to rip them up because they were against the idea of traditional British liberty. You've got to be against this if you're a patriot. And if you're going to be my friend, you've got to be against this. Mitch, I'm sorry, carry on, mate.
Yeah, I would say if Stalin was advising Starmer about this, he'd be saying, to paraphrase him, imposing digital ID upon Brits is rather like putting a saddle on the cow. No, I don't really see this taking off all that much, because even Tony Blair, who's far more competent about all this than Starmer, even he couldn't do it. What makes you think Starmer's going to be successful about it?
I just hope you're right, Mitch. I just hope you're right.
Yeah, and
you and I sometimes argue on the Discord about how good modern British people are. Right? We sometimes have friendly discussions and arguments about this, and I like to think they're just like they always were, and you'll sometimes tell me, oh no, they're more conformist.
Yeah, they are.
I just hope I'm right in this case, Mitch.
Right, I would say just to I'd argue against would pit whether not Western values, or say not Anglo values, because, for example, Germans, they've got digital ID, and
yep, I know,
and it's like, I'm reading about East Germany and Stasi. It's natural. Yeah. Germans having that kind of, dare you say, overbearing kind of state looking over them in that way.
They love it.
It's not
unusual. The more rules you give a German to live under, the happier they are.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Look, all I would say is, you got your Tharium. You know this. Yeah. Mitch and I sometimes discuss this kind of stuff on our Discord, which is a private Discord, by the way, guys. So no, you cannot join it. I think British people are more traditional than Mitch does. I think there's a lot of really good Brits still, and particularly Englishmen and women, but also Brits, Scots, Welsh, Northern Irish, and I don't think people are going to take this. I don't think they are, and I hope they're not, to be honest. But Farian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm somewhere between the two of you on that question. People generally want a quiet life, but there are limits. You can only push people so far.
It's going to make the whole of the British Isles into a prison with no walls. And Carl Benjamin is entirely right when he talks about this. And Dan, also from the Lotus Eaters, if you have digital ID, it is going to make the whole of the British Isles into a gigantic prison.
I think, the backlash, I think, because Starmer is the least popular government ever. And so he's not being extended any goodwill on this. And you see they're counting on these absolute retards coming out to try and sell it and going, oh, well, it will stop illegal immigrants from working, trying to jump on that. Yeah, I know, right. And no one is buying it because it's obvious bullshit. And
illegal immigrants do cash-in-hand jobs, and they will still do cash-in-hand jobs after Starmer brings this in.
Someone who goes along and says, "Hi, my name's Mahmood. Can you pay me in cash and keep it all off the books?" This isn't going to affect them. Someone who hires
not even slightly. And the same if they're renting property. The landlord will just take cash in hand. That's what's going to happen. So, all right, I can see what's going to happen. Then Starmer will try and say, "Oh, we got banned cash then."
Yeah.
Right, but that is going to hurt you more than our enemies.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
it will give you no freedom at all. Sorry, Mitch, carry on.
I just find Mr. Boomer argument where they go, "Oh, we're going to get a cashless society." Like, most people live already in a cashless society, though. Like most people, most people, especially my generation and millennials. Okay, but good for you, G. You're not the Zoomers or millennials, are you, in this country? Most Zoomers and millennials in this country, they generally pay by card.
What do you do, Mitch? What do you do?
It's a mix. I mean, if I go, for example, to a barber's or go to, let's say, Greg's or whatever, I just pay by cash because I know the people.
Right. Why not always try to pay by cash? Because then no one knows what you're spending. I
don't trust self-service machines to take money. I just pay by card on most things. If I'm in a supermarket, I'm just like.
I like cash. I do work for cash.
Cash is good. Yeah. Cash is king, mate. Cash is king.
If some of it happens to not get reported, oh well.
Pound notes, £5 notes, £10 notes. Yeah, great. I'm sorry, it's cash is king.
But one of the things I've also seen raised is that all these Turkish barbers and all this crap that are just laundering drug money, cash drug money, that contributes a fair amount to the tax revenue when they're cleaning this money, when they're laundering it. So the government, by cracking down on cash, it would cut down these things that it's kind of relying on because things are so bad now. So that could really backfire on them.
I mean,
Morgoth, could I ask you what's your view on like cash and?
Well, the issue with the pitching this because it'll make life difficult and hard for illegal immigrants, and the thing is that's not a solution. They're framing it as if the thing that what everybody's concerned about is that the illegal immigrants are working in the black economy. That's not the problem. The problem is that the illegal immigrants are just in the country at all.
Yeah.
They're not there. So you've got this sleight of hand. So a digital ID is not going to stop them coming across the channel. And then you get the secondary issue, which is that is it going to make it life more difficult for illegal immigrants once they're in the country? And I actually think it will. Because what tends to happen is that people are just looking at sort of the way the economy works. But if you need a digital ID for everything, if you need a digital ID to get on a bus or to get on a train or to open a bank account or to do just basic anything, to access any services, you need a digital ID. That will actually lock out the illegal immigrants. I mean, the legal immigrants now have already got digital IDs and they're being put up in hotels. So firstly, there's an issue where the government's primary concern is not the same as the concern of the general population, which is that we've got illegal immigrants just coming into the country. It looks like we don't have any borders. The government's concern is that there's all of this, there's this kind of whole economy which is operating off the books, which they can't tap into for tax revenue. So this is how they're coming at it. And I think that kind of shows you the mentality of how they view the population as a kind of tax farm rather than a nation with a native people and borders and all of that. Instead, it's a kind of managerialist solution to how you increase tax revenue over illicit forms of the economy. And when you expand it out and it becomes where you basically just can't access places without a digital ID. Imagine you try and get into like a shopping center or something and you've just got to scan, because that will be what happens. An illegal immigrant will find that they can't actually get into these places. But that doesn't mean that the government are going to kick them out. It just means that the government are going to give them all digital IDs, and it'll increase the amount of control over the economy, all of the financial transactions in the country, which seems to be what they're going for. But there's a huge issue with where all of this data goes and who's going to be operating the systems. Is it going to be Peter Thiel and Palantir? Will Israel have a backdoor into what's going on, or how does this connect to the NHS and the NHS data? Like so you've got all of these offshoots of it, but there's not a single positive thing about it for the British people. Unfortunately, it's convenient. It's not going to be made a living hell for most people because most people will just go around it. You know, I saw it affects everything. Just before we went live about an hour ago, I saw George Galloway has been stopped at an airport and brought in for questioning by the anti-terror police. George Galloway is not a terrorist. He's just got opinions that the regime doesn't like. So what's happened is, and this would probably happen for me as well now, if I travel through a major airport, there'd be a little ping goes off. Lots and lots of people have been pinged and picked up. And then you get took away on the anti-terror legislation that Blair brought in, and you get questioned. They go through your devices and everything. So now this has also happened to George Galloway and loads of people that it's happened to. And you know, in the kind of right-wing network. Now, when you've got a digital ID, well, everybody knows George Galloway. George Galloway is a prominent person. You can have somebody who's got a big YouTube channel that happens to them. And so you're on the radar. And the reason why I bring this up is because when you've got a digital ID, that'll happen to everybody. So yeah, okay, George Galloway, the thing pings when he goes in because everybody knows who George Galloway is. Everybody knows his opinions on things, which is why it's ridiculous that they have to investigate him for his opinions. Everybody knows what he thinks on things. He's got a show which gets millions of views. We've had him shouting in our face for decades. We know what George Galloway's opinions are. And when you have digital ID, though, the government and the AI systems will know you, and I mean the little account, the little anon account on Twitter with a bunch of numbers behind his names, the little person in the chat there who's just got an anon Google account for going on and watching live streams like here. Everybody will be equally sort of under the eye of Sauron as George Galloway is now. That's what's going to happen. Everybody, because the government will know you individually based on your activity, because everything will be tracked. So then it'll be filtered through. And I mean, I just did a tweet before. Basically, if you don't have the opinions of Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell on that podcast, you're going to fall outside of what's acceptable. And then by varying degrees, you're going to be more and more suspect. And that'll go for everybody.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that surprised me is I always thought they'd slow roll it more than they have. Because they've instantly come and going, you need this or you can't work. I'd assumed it would just be all carrots. Like they also mentioned, you can report potholes with it. Okay. But I always thought just introduce it quietly as just a little nothing thing and then build it up slowly. But they haven't done that.
Yeah, look, Morgoth is entirely correct. If this comes in, then we are all going to be banned from broadcasting, for example. We'll just be banned because it's so easy to do. You combine this with all the other stuff they've already done, like the online harms bill, as Morgoth mentioned, and various other things. None of us will be allowed to have a voice in public anymore, and everyone will have to believe the biased brainwashing corporation. This is just what's going to happen. If you are a patriotic English and British person, you just got to not support this. I'm sorry. Anyone good. I mean, Fucking Jeremy Corbyn, who I detest, supports this. Like, not doesn't support the online this digital ID. No one supports this who is even slightly patriotically or nationalistic inclined towards Britain. You've got to regard this as your total enemy. And I'm pleased to say there's almost 2 million people now signed the petition against it. And you know what? They'll ignore that petition. Of course they will. But you know what? If it gets to 3-4 million people, they won't be able to rely on the mainstream media as easily as they can at the moment.
Aren't they saying like 67% of people support it or something?
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, Farian, that's a total lie.
I know, right? Yeah.
Well,
it's just a lie.
Yeah, but I suppose it's trustworthy as that. I don't know, let's say in 1988, I don't know, Stasi go door to door going, do you support do you support the SED, like party, the Communist Party?
It was It was used to be YouGov, 73% support whatever the government wants to do now. I think they realised, we can't keep using 73%.
Well, all of the figures that they're citing, about how popular it's wonderful. Everybody loves it.
Yeah,
all those statistics come off the Tony Blair Institute website.
Yeah, 73% of the people working
the worst human being. Tony Blair, one of the worst human beings ever to live. But you're absolutely.
But yeah, this is why I'm not particularly that worried about the digital ID stuff, because manage it, and if even he can't manage it, what hope does Starmer have? Because I mean,
like I said, like he's no goodwill is already being extended to him over this.
Well, he's not known as two-tier Keir for nothing. He really is. Like, watch. If you make a tweet which is against some immigrant group in Britain, you will get 3 years in prison. Well, if you take a machete and kill somebody or try and kill somebody in the street, you'll probably get less time in jail.
Oh, you see the Quran burning thing that happened the other day. We got the guy who did the stabbing let off without anything. The guy who just burnt a book, prison.
Yeah, Britain, free country. Yeah, okay. AI, how are you going, mate?
I'm all right. I'm Duke. I can't really stay for too long, but I thought because it's the digital ID stuff is quite an important change, and the funny thing is, it feels like the ghost of Christmas past in some ways, because this feels like something I remember being talked about 5 years ago, precisely 5 years ago, actually, with COVID, and it's kind of like this thing which has always been it's been in the ether even longer than that. You go back to the early 2000s with Blair and his attempt to push it when he was Prime Minister. But this feels like the sort of like phantom menace has come back to has sort of like come back in sort of revenge form. And it's quite clear when you have Lewis Goodall, one of the loudest, proudest proponents of this, and people pointing out his wife is literally works at the Tony Blair Institute and everything. we know this digital ID is not good. There's no purpose of it, and there's no mechanisms how it could ever be used to deal with migration, particularly illegal migration. I mean, the guests have already stated this, but all those people operate in the black economy. There's no credit, there's no credit card, there's no bank statements, there's no paper trail. It's all cash in hand in a lot of cases. So, I mean, there's no way for that to be traced back to even enforce anything with a digital ID. It's going to be used like counter legislation on people like us. It's going to be used on people like us. It's going to be used in a way. I mean, I can foresee even getting like going to a supermarket, you rock up to your Asda or your Sainsbury's or Morrison's or whatever, and you actually have to get in through the doors. you have to scan your digital ID, and you get there, and it's actually like, oh, sorry, Mitch, or sorry, Morgoth, your social security score is like minus 1,000. You cannot get food.
Yeah.
One of the things that amazes me is that have you noticed Keir Starmer? Just everybody will point out, like, everybody's against this. There's a petition which got millions of people on within a day. His approval rating is rock bottom. But this has just been the story of this Labour government for the last 18 months. And I find it weird that Keir Starmer just doesn't seem to care.
No.
I've never known, I mean, even somebody like Rishi Sunak would panic, and put on this kind of happy, chappy way of engaging with people. He'd look a bit stressed. But Starmer, he's just like a machine.
Yeah.
And I've thought for some time, it's as if Starmer is there to do a job, regardless. Like, he doesn't care how many petitions there are. He doesn't care about winning another election. He doesn't care about how unpopular it is. It's that he has to get a job done. He has to meet a few key things that he has to get over the line, and then he can just check out and it's done, like a kind of berserker. On on a film like Heat, where the heist movie, where sometimes you can kind of like go in at night and disable the alarm systems and climb through the vents and crawl out and be away with some jewels, and the next day it's just an empty safe. But then there's other times, like, you've just got to go in hard through the front door, all guns blazing, and it's like, it's going to be messy. It's going to be a big mess, and you're going to have to go in with muscle, and it's not going to be pretty, and nobody's going to like it, but it has to be done. That's kind of what Keir Starmer is. He's just like a kind of skull cracker. I've never, with no interest in how unpopular it is. It's as if he's been given a mandate. Someone on high has said, just don't worry about any of that. And the funny thing about the digital ID is that they've done all this. See, everybody taps their card. Everybody's being tracked on their phones and all of this. They've got the online harms bill in. They're tracking your food and all of this. So all of that's already in place. But if they wanted the full system, sooner or later, they were going to have to cross the threshold and just tell everybody that they have to have a digital ID. That like central bit has to slot into place, and you can't. There's only so much you can do with PR and incrementalism. Sooner or later, you have to actually just cross that line and say, well, okay, we can't do any more fluffing around the edges. We have to slot the core piece in now. There's no way around it, and that's going to be nasty. That's going to be an unpleasant fight. And if we've got this guy in place, he's been told from on high, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the polls. Just make sure this gets through.
So do you? Because because that's a thing I've seen people, because there's obviously the power players like Tony Blair and stuff behind the scenes still, and there's sort of like, how much of this has been Keir Starmer going rogue and just being such a retard? Because they're, until now, their operating has been try to do it slowly, sneakily, and just. But you sort of think you think he's more the power players are just had enough of us, maybe thinking their time's at an end.
Yeah, I think there's a few key points that they have to do, which you can't do sort of. What's the word? I'm not stealthily. Sometimes on a few of these core issues, you just have to do it right out in the open, and you have to go in strong. And it's as if Keir Starmer is there for that purpose. That's my view. I mean, I noticed this. I noticed this during the Southport stuff last year. He just did not care.
No.
I mean, to answer your to probably sort of add to your point, Morgoth, it's important to remember that Starmer started his life as a lawyer, and he is a lawyer through and through. He's not like your average politician, where in some ways they do, like Sunak and stuff, they do seek popular opinion as a, there's sort of like their own like sort of narcissistic urge to be popular with the masses. And if you think about it, a lot he operates like when you see a lot of lawyers, particularly those like him who would defend, advocate for murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and in some cases, he probably did at several points, stand up, cross-examine victims of these crimes in front of the public gallery and absolutely tear into them.
Yeah.
And to do that, to have that mindset, you really have to just not care, not give a shit about anything. And I do honestly think that he could probably like face the mob level at like like poor King Louis did back in the day. He could face that mob level, and he would just be indifferent. I honestly think
Yeah.
he just indifferent. He could have a 1 million-man mob with a huge guillotine behind them, and he would just not feel a thing.
Yeah.
All right, except AI that Louis was nowhere near as bad as Starmer.
Yeah.
Obviously.
No.
But
No.
yeah, he was nowhere near. And Starmer is basically a gay guy pretending to be straight with his family. We all know that's bullshit, basically.
Another thing I'd say is like even some of like the secret police stuff you have in Soviet Union or East Germany even may have personality compared to Starmer. So
Yeah.
like Starmer's one like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people like Angela Merkel, who used to be, I believe, you'll tell me, Mitch. I believe Angela Merkel, when she was a young girl, was a Stasi secret policewoman in the East Germany. Is that all right?
Well, she had a 1 in 6 chance of being so. I don't know for certain.
Well, yeah.
But
Starmer is your enemy. If you're an Englishman or a Scotsman or a Welshman or a Northern Irishman or ladies of all those nations, Starmer is your deadly enemy. He is. He's your deadly enemy. Don't score him.
So what do we think of this talk about like Andy Burnham being dropped in to replace him? Do we think how much credit do we give to that?
Quite a few Blairites do want that, and they want that because there's this sort of acknowledgement that Starmer, you have like your politician who could get the baseline of support. Even if you lose an election, there's a baseline of support. Now the problem is because Starmer is such a robot. He's hated. I mean, anyone on the right, as I say, from us to conservative, centre right to centrist types, hate him. On the left, he's hated because of Gaza related stuff, and there is a knowledge problem there, and the fact is, a lot of the left have been people in the left of his party have been freaked out when they've seen if Corbyn's little party can get their act together, which is not a certainty at this point anyway. But let's just say they do. There is polling to show that they could get 10-15% of the vote, and so that would also cause problems in general election.
If you manage to get an Islamic party in Britain, if you get an Islamic party
led by Jeremy Corbyn,
probably not by Jeremy Corbyn, but led by somebody that Jeremy Corbyn supports. But if you get that, Labour's fucked. Basically, they're just
Yes, it's their own client.
Which in many respects would be good, I have to say.
I mean, it is a prophecy. I mean, go back to people like Bowden. He did predict this back in 2009. He said that there is a future where it wasn't hard, but it was the fact that their own client groups, they can't keep the client groups separate, segregated from each other. There will be crossover, and when that happens, you have like the LGBT white liberals meeting up with like the fundamentalist traditional Islamists. I mean, of course, there was going to be some sort of problem there. And there's only so many we unite against white traditional English people can go only so far. It can only,
First of all, white traditionalist English people are actually a group, but if half the Labour Party supports Islamists, i.e., so-called grooming gangs, which is really what it amounts to, and half the Labour Party supports Jeremy Corbyn, well, neither of those groups are going to win anything, really.
Yeah.
No. I mean, there's been talk about Sadiq Khan becoming leader. Have you seen that? That was another thing.
Yeah, I support that idea. I think Khan should become the leader of the Labour Party. I think they'll do even worse. But the point I'm trying to make is then, like, hopefully our side, I mean, initially we're going to end up with a Nigel Farage government. I wouldn't trust Nigel Farage.
Zia Yusuf government, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. I wouldn't trust Nigel Farage as far as I could throw him. And as Tharium says, it's really a Zia Yusuf government. But you know what? We'll get a bad government after that one. But you've got to break this uni-party, so-called conservative, so-called Labour. You've got to break that first. You have to.
I think that's what's happening, because I think Starmer's driving the Labour Party into the ground. It used to be the case that academic agents mentioned this a lot, where you used to have like the Tony Blair gambit, where what they would do would be Labour would swing to the right. They would outflank the Tories. Tony Blair would, because the idea was, we don't have to care about all the far left crazies because they've got nowhere else to go. Our problem is the right wing. Our problem is getting to the centre ground. And for that, we need to move further to the right than what the Tories could do. And so the Tories got thrashed by this, they just got battered with this. They didn't even recover when they took power. But now they can't do that because the Tories have got, firstly, Labour will, all right, Farage is what he is, but Labour are not in a position to outflank reform to the right. So you get Farage coming out. I mean, we can get into that. It's always irritating. You get a taste of something good, and then you get a bunch of nonsense. But then the big problem that they've got, I would say, is not just Corbyn's party, but the Green Party.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Party have become. So what's happened is the kind of the woke flank of Labour have just fallen off and joined the Green Party. So now you've got a situation where I am. So now you've got a situation where they can't flank to the right of reform, but they've gone so far in that direction that their left flank has broken off and gone to either Corbyn's party or the Green Party. So you're left with this kind of core neoliberal rump in the middle of the Labour Party. So they could end up getting the sort of 0 seats from the left type of thing as well. So the Tories, the Tories just don't seem to have recovered at all. But it looks like this digital ID thing, it could be just the end of them. This raises a question of what Farage is going to do, because Farage has come out and said he's against this root and branch. I think they've said if Reform get in, they're going to scrap it. There's a problem with that, though, and it's why I think Labour have got to move so fast. And it's that, in reality, you get to say, if Starmer can manage to cling on, you get to 2029, we've got Prime Minister Farage. So much of this stuff is going to be baked in to the everyday lives of people that it would be a real challenge to actually get it back out, to winkle it back out. So people by that time will just be used to what, I mean, look, they already kind of are.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, well, we've already got all of the stuff for digital IDs. We're already being tracked. We're already being targeted for ads. We already pay for everything afterwards. What difference does it make if our taxes and driver's licenses and whatnot are on there as well? So by the time Farage comes in, it may well be that all of this stuff is just too baked in to kind of untangle and get back out, which is why it has to be stopped now rather than voted out at a later date. And that's assuming that Farage would even try. But you've always got the stab in the back option with him.
Yeah, like it's a lot of power. And especially with like Yusuf in there, who's quite a control freak. It's like, do they have it in them to throw the ring into the fire?
Well, no,
I don't think so from them.
They'll just go full Boromir mode, and they'll just say, "Well, we're here now.
Yeah,
we're in government now,
it's fine,
and we can amend this to make it work for us and the British people and all that sort of stuff." And in reality, I mean, yeah, it's one thing you find in these in our sort of like the neoliberal system, and whenever parties take over, is they'll be saying, "Well, we want to overturn this." I can't think of really anything, and I mean, leaving the EU, I wouldn't even class this, but I can't think of anything that has been overturned in recent decades successfully. I just can't think of a single bit of legislation that benefited.
Give up then, because I don't believe that. I think the British people are totally against this, and we will all fight heart and soul to get rid of it.
Well, no, my point is
maybe I'm being optimistic, but I hope that's what we all do.
My point, Iron Duke, is we can't let it get into the legal framework of this country, because I think then it would be too late. That's my point. We kind of have to like
fight now, don't fight later. Fight now.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Rupert Lane, and also, I mean, people watching this now, because there'll be people watching it live and people watching it later on. Even if you live in a seat where you have a Labour MP, I would recommend even contacting them and saying, "Listen, I don't support this, and here's why." Because there are some, I think there are some Labour MPs who are, also not in favour of this for maybe other reasons. But yeah, I mean, that. I think it has to be stopped before it gets into the legal framework of this country.
Don't ever surrender to your enemies. And the whole idea of digital ID in the UK is totally your enemy. If you're a real English, Scottish, Welsh, or Northern Irish person, digital ID is your enemy. Fight against it, boys and girls, so much as you can.
I can sort of see like the Morgoth's point about how they're just using Keir Starmer as basically just a fall guy. He will push everything bad through and then they'll replace him, but nothing will be repealed.
Yeah, but Keir Starmer's a gay guy pretending to be straight. We all know that. He detests everyone who is actually really British.
He's definitely one of the most
person. He hates you.
He's definitely one of the most hateful. Yeah, he's one of the most hateful people in government. Like actual hatred.
He spent his whole life trying to get more and more illegal immigrants into Britain as a lawyer. That's what Keir Starmer's done. He's a gay guy who's pretending to be straight, right? I think everyone is pretty clear on this these days. He's an evil man, basically, and every good British person should oppose him because he's an evil man, basically.
It's very much like Stalin's retarded cousin. He's how he comes across. Like if he could,
if he could murder you like Stalin
he would.
He would. He absolutely would.
Yeah, we're lucky he's just a bit too retarded, but
Well, we're lucky that the British system is not quite as bad as that system. Really,
We're lucky the British system is run by by like lesbian, black, biracial, lanyard wearing women
thank
with
God for bio-Leninism.
obnoxious accents and not like some Georgian hard men who
yeah,
who
no,
came up through the Bolshevik ranks.
don't disagree with you guys, but you know, Starmer, as far as I'm concerned, is equally evil to someone like Stalin. He absolutely is. He would kill you in a heartbeat if he could.
Well, I mean, Andrew, remember after Southport, that massive left-wing demos, you know, the supposed massive big right-wing demo that never happened. It was a false flag and everything. That was Starmer and the British state using their foot soldiers, which is like the Stand Up to Racism Antifa mob, and a lot of them attacked, you know, randos on the street. This was like a scene of terror, which would go on post-Russian Revolution and also post-French Revolution. This is just like this sort of post-revolutionary terror using the mob as a symbol to oppress, you know, anyone who's distant in the country, make them feel isolated, and also intimidate.
That's why I keep reposting the petition to stop this. It's now at almost 2 million people.
I think it's over 2 million now.
Yeah, well done. I'm happy to hear that, AI. But
last time I heard, it's over 2 million.
Yesterday, it was like, it was almost 1 million, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Because you know what? Most British people want to be free. They don't want to live in a police state, which is what Starmer and Labour want. And even like the Nigerian woman who runs the so-called Conservative Party at the moment, even she's against it. And even people like, what's his name, the communist who used to run the Labour Party, even he's against it. How about we all make sure that these people who try and say on the mainstream media, and we keep seeing it, they keep saying, oh no, some people want this. Nobody wants this, boys.
I can't think of any good argument for this, because it's like they're going, oh well, YouTube knows a lot about you, so why do you complain about digital IDs off the government? And you have to be lobotomized to support this. From what I'm seeing,
you have to be extremely dumb, Mitch, and you are right.
The only people I have seen in the last couple of days who have been and today supporting this, like on TV doing the rounds, have basically been employees of the Tony Blair Institute, which I mean obviously were the ones to draw up this sort of plan. And the argument of, oh, you pay subscription services, you have to show ID, you have to go on the bus and everything, and it's like, well, yeah, it's optional. It's optional. This isn't optional. I'd like to have optional influence from fucking Tony Blair and his minions, please. Can we make that fucking optional?
Tony Blair, who started 2 of Britain's forever wars and killed hundreds and hundreds of British soldiers for no purpose whatsoever, except that, you know, they were dead, and also now supports, let's bring Afghans into Britain. And some of these Afghans who apparently can't go back to Afghanistan go back there for holidays for weeks. It's come on, guys, start using your brain, people.
I am interested to know why the Green Party and figures like that though are against it, because I doubt it's like for reasons, because they don't really care about.
They probably just think, oh, this is being done to hurt illegal immigrants. We love illegal immigrants. That'd be my
they just love anyone who isn't British, basically.
Well, that's what I thought, but I'm just thinking that even they would sort of realise it wouldn't have effect. If you look at the illegal immigrant framework in this country, it wouldn't have any effect on it, like
They
one way or
are
another.
very retarded, though.
They are.
I mean, look at everything they believe. They probably believe that.
Man-made climate change is a big deal. No, it's not. I'm sorry. Do you know what? All those great big massive wind turbines that the Greens like so much, they kill tens of thousands of birds every single year. Great if you're into wildlife, not.
On Tony Blair, there's one thing I saw going around, like talk of him being put in charge of Palestine. Does anyone know what that was about?
I've seen that. Yeah, he wants to run Gaza. I would absolutely let him run Gaza, but only so long as the Israelis were allowed to bomb him.
Yeah,
because hopefully that would kill him, but only for that. And I don't like the Israelis or the Palestinians or Tony Blair. But if Tony Blair was allowed to go to Gaza and run it, and the Israelis were allowed to bomb it, and the Americans, I would absolutely support that because Tony Blair might die. That would be good.
But I mean, what is the thinking with this? How on earth is he going to be running things in Gaza?
I think I would say it's that the Palestinians have been ethnically cleansed, and then they want to create some kind of charter city where they bring in billionaire investments from BlackRock and American corporations and all of the rest of it. They all come in. And then Trump announced this like a year ago or whatever it was, when he said we're going to have, like, was it Gaza Riviera or something? Yeah. And so basically you have this temporary no man's land where the population have been bombed, murdered, starved out, ethnically cleansed. And then you'll have an administrator come in while to oversee the infrastructural development and create some sort of 15-minute city type thing until eventually it falls into Israel's hands or something like that. I don't think it's going to be that Tony Blair would be sort of king of the Palestinians. I think he'd be, as he always is, king of the rubble, sitting on top of the corpses.
Well, the plan is
the corpses and the bomb creators.
In Morgoth, he's like the inverted version of Cecil Rhodes. I mean, he's like the inverted, like evil version of Cecil Rhodes.
Yeah, you remember the old meme where it was Tony Blair taking a selfie and there was like bombs and explosions going off in the background?
Yeah.
They'll just have to update that from him being in his 40s to his 70s.
He's an evil man.
The plan isn't...
Tony Blair's just an evil man, I'm sorry.
Of course, the plan with the Palestinians is just to move them into Europe instead.
Yes. Because that way they're not Israel's problem.
Yeah.
I'd say to people that you might as well watch AI's stream we did the other day with Connor Tomlinson, because essentially Connor Tomlinson was doing the whole, he was asking a bunch of Israelis, why can't we have a state like yours? And it's like, well, those Israelis in question don't actually want us to have states like that.
Yeah, I mean, my stream where I reacted to it was, I mean, it was quite clear. It's quite clear in my mind that the reason why Britain and most of Europe and Canada, Australia, and places like that have recognised Palestine is only because it gives that legal framework then to have actually refugees from Gaza coming to the West. And to, as Morgoth said, to depopulate Gaza and then rebuild it with under like some new Middle East Singapore sort of hybrids.
Israel will be entirely happy if most Gazan people live in the West. Morgoth, what do you think about that?
I think he's had to step away for a few minutes.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
I'm back. I was just letting the dog out. What was the last question?
Morgoth, I was just saying, some of our guests here have been saying, I think correctly, that Israel will be very happy if most Gazans live in Western states.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's absolutely what they want. Or they'll just kill them, or they'll say we're going to carry on the genocide because that looks like what it is. People don't like that kind of language, but I don't like Israel, and I know, like, you can say I don't like Israel or Palestine, but there's one group who, out of the two of them, one of them is incalculably more powerful across the West than what Palestinians are. And you can see it just today, or was it yesterday, where Netanyahu's holding a conference, like a struggle session for all these, what he calls their influencers. They've just bought TikTok so that they can turn it around so that they can have pro-Israel propaganda on there and boost their own pro-Zionist influencers. They've had all of the American Congress to kiss the wall in last week or the week before. Everybody, and you've got Trump, who's just given them a blank check to do whatever they want. You've even got the conspiracy around Charlie Kirk's death, which the whole internet is talking about. I don't know what happened there. I'm going to give it a pass, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't know. But the thing is, they stink, to be quite honest, and they've got this grip on the country which is just outrageous. And so they'd be more than happy to offload the Palestinians or emotionally blackmail Western libtards. And they say, well, fine, if you aren't going to take them, we'll just carry on killing them. We'll just carry on blowing them up. 20,000 dead children, a lot of them with headshots. A lot of them, like, shot through the back of the head, shot through the forehead, shot in the heart by, like, long-range sniper rifles and all of this. But they're going to tell you that every single house in these towns and these cities, every single one of them was wired open, had like a Hamas tunnel underneath. I just don't believe it, because I don't believe them. I think it's rotten to the core, and I think their grip over the West is disgusting and makes me sick. And to be fair, they've got a big problem on their hands because they're losing the last demographic in the West which supports them. It's not all doom and gloom. And you've got these all these influencers going over to Israel.
Connor Tomlinson.
He went over. There was a lot of them went over. A bad mistake, and I know that he was warned not to go, and he did it anyway. And sorry, that's wrong. You shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I agree in Connor Tomlinson's case, and mostly it was AI who convinced me. Yeah, that was a mistake.
I mean, because I reviewed the video on stream, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll give him the benefit that maybe he made the mistake and they used him because and everything. And he makes it sound like, oh, I went over to Israel on holiday just to to do this attend the conference and see some Christian sites. No, he went there and he was explicit throughout all of it, even though he lied to his audience, that this is basically this was like an emergency session for the Israeli government. This is actually the government and ministers and figures of government.
Why is this our problem? It's not our problem.
It's not our problem. It's their problem because we're not making it our concern. That is why he went over there.
If you were an Englishman, all right, you could look back to 1947 and 48 when Israeli Jewish terrorists captured British NCOs and hung them. You could look back to 1947 and 1948 when Israeli terrorists blew up British women and children in the King David Hotel. Or if you were an American, you could look back to the Israelis attacking the USS Liberty off the coast of Israel for hours and killing like scores of people, scores of American sailors. But you can look at all those things, but you're not really allowed to. You're not allowed to.
But the thing is, it's really quite simple. And Connor said this. They want us. They want people like us. They want our countries to be filled with their populations that they've forced out by the barrel of the gun, right? And they want a counter jihad. They want the West to be embroiled in us versus Muslims. They will invoke crusades. I mean, most of the Anon accounts that you have of the crusade accounts usually have some sort of pro-Zionist. I usually think they're like Israeli bots, to be honest, like bots that come out of Israel or something like that.
On the other hand, AI, on the other hand, it is true that Britain in particular has a real issue with so-called grooming gangs.
Well, this is why they.
Hang on, mate. Hang on. You can carry on.
Yes. Yeah.
We have a real issue with so-called grooming gangs, who are basically child rapists of Western little girls, sometimes as young as 11. All right. Sorry, AI. No,
I was going to say, no, but the thing is, you're right, and the problem that we have is that is correct. And this is why this is such a awful situation for the British people to be in, and for most Western people to be in, because they are a threat. They are a threat, but they're kind of like a threat that was pushed and is consistently pushed, as I point out, with Israel Aid, which is
certain Israeli groups, yes,
who actually helped a lot of and help with legal stuff, particularly in Europe. I mean, particularly in Europe,
but also by people to be fair, by people like Sir Keir Starmer, who's always supported these people, always in his whole career. And indeed, at one stage, he was on a communist watch list, because of the fact that even when he was a young man, he was doing this. So Keir Starmer is a total traitor to England and in Amber. And if you don't think he is, go check out his history.
But I mean, but we're going back to Colin Tomlinson and people. They were invited because Israel wants to rehabilitate their image for the new Zuma stuff. They will give us red meat on identitarianism and nationalism. But one thing you note, though, is at the end the one way is it's kind of like if you say to them, that loyalty to Israel is still there, and they will not surrender it, and Connor will not surrender it, and it's because they're basically bought. They're bought into it. They're actually. I mean, for him, he was actually bought. He admitted he was actually bought. So, yeah.
Do you think people like Connor, if our sort of side of things ever got into power, do you think they'd oppose us? Or would they just go along with it?
I mean, listen, if by some sort of freak accident our side got into it, I mean, all I say is watch the film Munich, and you could probably guess the outcome of people like us and in that.
No, I disagree with you. I actually think we are going to win.
I think there's a difference and something like a sort of generational shift, and it's that when I came into this, when I remember during the 2000s, and I was reading like sort of the Mark Stein type stuff, America Alone, that by 2020 Muslims will have outbred like native Europeans and all of that, and we'll all be under Sharia law and everything. And there was all of this kind of counter-jihad thing. There was Gates of Vienna, there was Fjordman, they were all huge. But back then, the counter-jihad kind of pro-Israel, this thing that we're talking about where nationalist sentiment, nativist sentiment in Europe has been hijacked and kind of manipulated by Zionists to serving Zionist ends. What you noticed back then was that it was always based on sort of classic liberal priors. So the idea would be that Jews had their own sort of ethnicity, their own in-group, and the right to an ethno-state. But if you imagine, people remember like Pat Condell, and all of these people that were big at the time, they were like, well, I don't see colour. For them, it was just about values, and it was about basically classic liberalism. That's what their position was, and that was like the sort of carve out that they'd been allowed ideologically from Zion. That they could say, well, the issue is that Muslims don't respect our values. They don't, and it always seems to come down to like curiously feminist arguments and stuff. And that was what they were allowed. That was the sort of sandpit they were allowed to be in. But now you find that like somebody like Connor, to be fair, is much more sort of ethnocentric in his thinking. And when he went to Israel and he saw the clip, his basic pitch was one which I think was well thought out in a way, but it didn't work. But he was basically saying, why don't you support us to have an ethno-state? And so on the one hand, he is asking a perfectly valid question. And on the other hand, it kind of leans into that paradox that they have a hard time explaining. And I actually don't know how they answered it. But there's no getting around the fact that he was there. You know, the sort of the overall context of the situation and who he writes for and all of this has put him in a very, very bad spot, regardless of how he cleverly tried to frame that question. Do you see what I mean? What it tells you is that it's no longer so easy for them to say, well, actually, yeah, we totally support you in your right to have an English England, because they will the Zionist side of it. Obviously, the more liberal Jews will never go there, but the Zionist side of it will draw the line on that as well, which is why you see a Tommy rally with people doing the haka from New Zealand, the Maoris.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he says he's been offered trips to Israel before. He's just flat out refused. He's not having anything to do with that.
Sensible, because if you go on a paid trip, there are always strings. Always.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sargon is the atheist. I think if he was to go out there, he couldn't say, "Oh, I wanted to see like the churches and all that." He couldn't really get away with that, could he? And to be honest, I honestly do think, on a purely like realistic level, a lot of this like stuff of obsessing with Zion and that sort of aspect is very Americanized. So it's not really something, whether you're religious or you're not religious in this country, it's ever really been a thing. I don't know of. I mean, I know people who tend to church here and everything. Sort of your younger ones. None of them have ever like visited the Holy Land. Even like the sort of older boomer generation types haven't visited the Holy Land. I think there's only one chap who went to Syria like back in the 70s or something. But that's again, so it's a very Americanized thing as well. That doesn't really.
But I'm an atheist. Okay. Actually, I'm not. I'm an agnostic these days. I used to be an atheist. These days, I'm an agnostic. You know what? I don't think that makes me necessarily anti-English or British. I'm just an agnostic. I see many of my friends, including UAI, and including good guys like Dave Green in the American sphere, who are absolute Christians. I'm not. I'm sorry. I probably never will be, to be honest. I've come away. I'm not an atheist anymore. I'm an agnostic these days, but that's probably as far as I'm going to go. But you know what? I don't believe in these fucking Muslim guys who decide they're going to blow up 15 girls in a concert or something. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't think
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Like this, the thing with the
And-
counter jihad sort of thing. I mean, like, yeah, there's the Israeli influence on it, but it is an actual thing. You know, Muslims are a problem. We can't.
Oh
live with
yeah.
So it's
in
not-
Western nations, yes.
it's
they
not
are.
like feminism or say these other sort of ops where it's just nonsense.
But
There is some at least
all
some truth
right,
to it.
Tharium, you mentioned feminism. Okay, feminism is also a problem. I'm sorry.
I know,
I'm not
but
feminist.
it's feminism.
I'm not feminist.
Yeah, my point with feminism was that it's all nonsense, unlike these sort of Islam
Well,
stuff.
but this has been the thing with the last 10 years. It's been like liberalism or disaffected liberals against Islamists, and that's and it's like, oh, we need to come in on the side of the liberal. And I said, well, not really,
Yeah.
because the liberals. I mean, in some ways, I can forgive the foreign Muslim because at the end of the day, he's nothing to do with me. He has no connection to me or English people. He is at the end of the day, he is an alien who just happens to be here. When it comes to a liberal or someone like that who is a native Brit who does this, that's a bigger problem to me because that obviously means there is something wrong in society. That there are enough people who can be brought up in the society and hate their own race to such an extent that they are genocidal about it. That is not normal, and that needs to. I mean, and how do they come to that position? I mean, I imagine. I mean, yes, it's like education, popular culture, and everything. But this has obviously got to the point where this is becoming, we need to fix the deficiencies within our own group. This is where I'm at the moment. It has to be those people have to be dealt with in one way or another.
A English girl, a pretty English or Scottish girl, wearing a pretty summer dress that the Islamists would not like. That's my issue. Is like fuck them. It's not their business. She's an English or a Scottish girl. You understand? She can wear whatever pretty dress she likes, and I'm not an Islamist. The whole white Sharia thing really pisses me off.
Yeah.
I don't go for it. I never support it. It's always bad.
Yeah.
But the Islam problem is not disconnected from the mass immigration problem. So it isn't like, well, if they were all if all of the Muslims suddenly turned into libtards, that would be even worse, because what is the excuse? This is why, when you see people, and I get that they mean well, but they'll say like, we need to ban the burqa, we need to, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Are we trying to turn all of the Muslims? A lot of the
I would ban
hold on. A lot of the younger generations of the Muslim women are actually liberal feminists. Just look at the Labour Party. They're moving into managerialist positions now. They are like neoliberals, and this is the sort of the clash of civilizations things. And in the end, at least the crazies, you can say, well, this is totally foreign and we want it out. But because at the end of the day, none of this has anything to do with Zionism in the Middle East. This is an issue from Pakistan as well. They're not Palestinians. They're coming in for specific regions of Pakistan against our will, and then imposing their own religion and all the rest of it on us. This is an issue with Whitehall, the British government, and mass immigration. I don't really see, I don't need the counter jihad to tell me why this is bad. I know that mass immigration is bad.
Yep, 100% Morgoth. Look, I would ban the burqa. I would ban halal meat, but I'd also ban the Jewish version of that as well.
Kosher.
Yeah, I'd ban all of it, and I think that would help us a bit.
Yeah.
Well,
One of the
I would also ban the Muslim Council and the Jewish councils of
Yeah.
various Jewish councils of
absolutely.
Britain. I would ban that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One of the
I
things-
totally agree.
One of the things I never like is this idea we have to pick sides of this stuff. Like the feminists
Well,
or the Islamists,
we do have to
the
pick sides,
Jews
but-
or the. I can just hate both of you. That's
Yeah.
that's always my thing.
Yeah,
I think
we could avoid these Middle Eastern
Yeah.
vile wars that, once upon the time, and we were talking about this in the chat only a couple of minutes ago, in 1947 and 1948, you could be captured by Jewish terrorists if you were a British soldier, and you could be publicly hung, or the Jewish terrorists could blow up a hotel, like the King David Hotel, for example, full of British women and children. You were allowed to do that. Even in the 1960s, the Jewish state was allowed to, bomb the fuck and rocket the fuck out of the USS Liberty. And it was just covered up, and it's always been covered up since.
This is just what your greatest ally always does. Okay.
Yeah, of course, your greatest ally always kills you. That's what they do. Yeah.
Or recognize or recognize part of your territory to a foreign nation like Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day on this subject of the counter jihad and everything. I was watching, Nikki Campbell had this kind of shitty debate show on a Sunday morning, and I used to watch it. I was away, I was working away on the continent, and I remember one they had Richard. They had the crazy wild-eyed imam came on, and it wasn't about grooming gangs, but it was about Muslim attitudes towards women or something. And they got on like the kind of the house crazy, we've got the house, we've got the house coming. Now we've got the house crazy Muslim. And they had Richard Dawkins on as well. And the Muslim said, well, it was about that thing that they said, well, as far as British women are concerned. And he went, well, if you're going to leave meat uncovered, don't be surprised when somebody comes along and takes a bite, or something like that. If you're going to leave your women uncovered, that's what he said. And Richard Dawkins did this thing, which I always thought was the weakest, most pathetic thing ever. And he looked back, he looked at the Muslim, really, he sort of stared him right in the eye. And he went, they're not our women. and I was like, what? Yes, they fucking are. Are you out of your mind? What? So basically, he was trying to do this thing where it was our strength is in being liberal feminists. Yeah. You're not ready. You're not ready for it. And I just thought, you retard, because if it would have been this profoundly illiberal stance if Dawkins had said, well, actually, they are our women, and we decide how they could go around dressed and all of the rest of it. And you got into this really sort of awkward thing about feminism in the West. But Dawkins thought that was our strength. And what he's done there is give away everything, and the Muslim has conceded nothing, because the Muslim still has access to his women covered up. But not only has he still got his values and all of his women offer him, but as a point of principle, Dawkins has said, we don't even lay claim to our women.
Yeah.
They're not ours. They're everybody's. And I just thought, this is suicide. This is crazy. And he was...
yeah? I was going to say that mindset, though, is when you look at like the number of white police officers, councillors in Northern England back in the day, particularly Labour or even the police officers, for example, who knew about this, would engage with the perpetrators of the grooming gangs, were friendly with them, or somehow involved. This was kind of like that mindset, though. Oh, they're not us, or they're common slags, or whatever the terminology they use. It's the same mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all- yeah.
The new atheists just have no answer to anything anymore. Like the Richard Dawkins types.
I'm Duke. I'm going to have to head off now. So thanks for having me on.
All right. I think he must be. I think he must be away somewhere.
It must be away. Oh, no worries. Okay, I'll see you all later.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. So what's next on the docket? Well, what are we going to put the world to rights on next? Look, I'll be honest. I could talk about Israel quite a lot because and everything. Just the idea that Netanyahu holds a struggle session in for their as he put it, their influencers in America. Well, they've got TikTok now, and they've got all of these people who went over to kiss. Well, I've never been asked to go on a trip to Israel.
Really?
Yeah,
I would love. To be honest, I'd love to see you on a trip to Israel.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
I've got no interest in going anywhere like that. No, not at all. And they've never. To be honest, I'd be terrified. Because I'd be thinking I've seen the stuff about Charlie Kirk's microphone and the PHS and all the rest of it. So I just don't trust them at all. But they don't want me anyway. They've never asked me to go anywhere near. And I'm not on the influencer board towards Israel. Like I'm more likely to be on the one with Greta Thunberg.
I'll tell you, Morgoth, years ago now, many moons ago now, I used to work in Ellie Beach in Australia on sailboats. And there was a sailboat there called Habibi, which always took Israeli people as its main customers. Never worked on it, by the way. But the guys who did work on that boat used to tell me that like the Israelis who came on it were really wound up, and they were really inclined to be rude, shall we say, which I think is like being less than truthful. And I wouldn't have been able to work on that boat because I would have ended up hitting one of the passengers, which you're not allowed to do, of course. But yeah, that's what used to happen. And that was in Australia, for God's sake. So, yeah.
I mean, one of the things you touched on it briefly, I feel like they've gone a bit too far with things too quickly. They've gone mask off too quickly, and it does seem to be backlash. They working against them now. Just like you say, they're losing so much support from all groups now.
Tharian, what do you think of the idea of Tony Blair taking over Gaza, which seems to be the latest idea? I hope he does, but I also hope he lives there, and the Israelis drop a bomb on him. That's what I hope. But I mean, that's just purely non-violent, of course. I mean,
I'm guessing the plan is he's going to go be governor there just to make sure even more Palestinians get into Europe.
Yep. And I hope no British soldiers go there, obviously. But also, you can always hope that while he's there, an Israeli bomb will land on his head. And that would be the one time I'd turn around and say to Israel, you did something good there, boys.
It's like one of the things I really hate about Putin. He's always threatening to nuke London, never does it. Come on, man. Stop
Yeah.
teasing me.
Well, I would. What
Well-
in Minecraft, of course.
Well, I mean, you had all these American conservatives talking about what they're going to do to the left in terms of like cleaning institutions out and so on. And it's been like 2.5 weeks since Charlie Kirk's assassination, and pretty much nothing's happened. All I've
tell
seen
you
is
what, I was-
GOP. All I saw was a GOP saying they're going to create a commemorative coin. With
Yeah.
Yes. They haven't done enough. Yeah.
I'm surprised it wasn't a crypto coin. The Charlie Kirk crypto coin. I was expecting that.
All right, for our last bit of this stream, because we're an hour and a half now, guys, I want to ask Morgoth, if you had your way, Morgoth, what would be your perfect political thing that would happen now? I mean, obviously, Labour's not going to win the next election. I think it's pretty obvious that neither are the so-called Conservatives. But if you had your way, what would happen, Morgoth?
Well, I mean, that's a big one, isn't it? But I'm stuck in kind of two modes. I can give a kind of idealistic mode and a romantic vision of how I would have, which, you know,
That'd be cool.
Everybody can kind of get where that would be, because it would just be pure nostalgia bait, you know. But then there's dealing with certain realities, and I think the two kind of come together in the end. And if it was, there was a subject that I was discussing the other day somewhere, and it's this idea that if you have a look, if we accept the reason for mass immigration, because, you know, a lot of the stuff which makes life miserable, there's the actual raw numbers. I've been busy writing an essay on this, but I got sidetracked with the digital ID stuff. But there's the actual sort of the initial idea of the raw numbers, just the amount of foreigners coming into the country. There's that. But then what really makes life miserable is all of the knock-on effects of that to kind of hold that in place, like the political correctness, you know, like people being raided for tweets by all of the we rewrite our history so there's black people in it now, and all of that, all of this. If we didn't have a multicultural society, we wouldn't have to have all of that. And so you can stack up all of the negatives, and they are huge, and not least about the fact that we're just being destroyed by it. But if we accept the actual argument that we have an aging, declining population, and what they're doing is doing this sort of Ponzi scheme to prop the numbers up, let's just steal a man that position, because we do. Okay, so I think a lot of people in this kind of debate just want to wish that away, and we can't. And what I think's interesting is that if you go back, say, in 1997, and I know like 1948 Nationalities Act and everything, let's just stick with the sort of beginning of the 1997 Blair bit. If you can think there was a different timeline that we took, and we didn't open the gates to mass immigration, where we would be somewhere like Japan, where you would have this upside down sort of triangle scheme to your population. Too few births, too many old people. But what you would find would be that would inform the national conversation, and it would have been the knock-on effects of all of that you would have to deal with. You wouldn't have to deal with hate speech laws. You wouldn't have to deal with grooming gangs. You wouldn't have to deal with all of the usual shit that we have to deal with. But there would be stresses and strains on society. Now, the strange thing is, like, we would be poorer for it. There's no way around it. You can be poorer and be sort of ethnically cleansed in multiculturalism, dissolved, or you can stick with your own and you'll still be poorer. But the thing is, we've been through that before. There's been times in our histories when there was too few births. We've been through the Great Plague together. We've been through all of these different things together. And what you will find is that if we hadn't had immigration, you would actually be in a situation where, for example, the housing market, and this is where I'm going to sort of address the question, is that the financial system would be just completely different. And it would be one which wasn't built on infinite growth at all times. If anything, it would be built on degrowth. And so it would be more socialistic. But you would also have to deal with the fact that you had the costs on healthcare, the amount of old people that would be a strain. It would be an issue in the day-to-day sort of running of society. There wouldn't be enough young people. But because something like housing would be so cheap and so abundant, because there's more people, over time you're going to have more housing than what you know what to do with. You're going to have a kind of weird drop-off effect like we've had in the past, where all of a sudden, well, there's all of this housing and it's going cheap. You can knock two houses into one. You can have it where the woman can stay at home and raise kids, and the man goes out, because you're not going to spend the next 50 years paying off a mortgage. You're not going to be renting forever on the treadmill like that. And so all of a sudden, if you kept the economics stable like that, we would be materially poorer. It's a fact. But we would survive. And what I would like, if I had my way, would be to foreground this way of thinking over neoliberalism, to be quite honest. That's how I would deal with this. I wouldn't dodge the difficult questions. You take them on the chin and say, yeah, we're going to have to deal with that. So that's what I would say to that.
100% Morgoth. Look at Japan. There are rural areas in Japan, and Japan, by the way, has a much higher population than Britain for a similar land area. But on the other hand, Japan has never had mass immigration. And there are rural areas in Japan where you can buy a house for about 30,000 quid. Try doing that in Britain. And everything Morgoth just said is entirely correct. So if you're a young bloke like Mitch or Tharium, and you want to go and buy a house in Britain, if we had the Japanese style of running the country, you could go and buy a 3-bedroom rural house for 30,000 quid. Now, you've no chance of ever doing that in Britain because of mass immigration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it like we always talk about problems. Just getting rid of all the foreigners would just make things so much better. And just every front. There's easy solutions and stuff.
And even leaving aside stuff like grooming gangs and all the rest of it, like it would immediately get rid of those things, obviously, and also like so-called refugees coming across from France. And no one who comes from France is a refugee. They were in a safe country anyway. They're illegal economic migrants.
Did you see
they come across and they want to sexually assault 11-year-olds in Essex? You know? Give me a break, British government. What the fuck are you pretending?
Yeah, I would say I think like what Nigel, like, because Reform came out saying we're going to deport the Boris wife, which they were saying like because we never got to vote on it, like there was no democratic mandate. The thing about that is, okay, if reform is up another Pandora's box up, because you might as well just say, okay, let's review all immigration cases since when
going back to 1948. That's what I'd do, mate.
Yeah,
I know I'd deport most of them. I really would.
Yep.
If you're not at least half British, I'm sorry, you're gone. Go.
It is good because it's clearly like our side of things that are pushing reform to feel like they need to say this. Even like the Tommy Tards, I'll give them credit that I think that scared reform
Yep.
a bit.
Yep.
Um,
We're kind of using Nigel Farage, who I don't totally trust, but we are kind of using him as
Yeah.
a puppet at the moment. Yes.
Yeah, like they're clearly responding to us, at least pretending that they're going to do these things.
Yep.
So that it's either way, it's going to win. It's a win for us because they'll either do it, which great, I won't complain, or as I suspect, they won't really. They might do some little tiny half measure, but the like Mitch said, Pandora's box is open now.
But we have to break them, Tharium. We have to break the so-called conservatives and the so-called Labour Party. They have to be broken. And Farage can do that, which is why I will support the next
with the feeling he's trying to tap into. Like that's done now. So if he does betray us, well, okay, we're just going to go someone even more extreme next time.
I suspect so. I mean, Farage has said this himself. He said, if you think I'm bad, watch what you'll get. Although I think he should have said, if you think I'm good, watch what we'll get. But I think we will win in the end. I've had arguments about this. I've had arguments with Mitch about it. And I like Mitch. Mitch is a good friend of mine. But you know what? I think the British people in the end will win because they are good people.
Right. The main discussion, the discussion we were having, was it yesterday or the day before, where I was saying, I don't deny we're going to win. I'm just saying you believe that most British people we're all eccentric and we don't conform. No, that's absolute BS. I mean, you would see what it was like.
No, Mitch. That's not what I believe. I believe all British people are the best people in the world. But that's because
that's being too generous. Like, there are plenty of people in this country I would purposely I'll just get rid of day one.
Mitch. But you know what? I run a YouTube channel and I'm a nationalist and a patriot, and I don't talk about this, people. All right, I just ignore them.
The thing is, the conformist position is every day moving closer towards us as we gain strength.
Yes, 100%, Tharium. I believe that. I believe the best people in Britain are more and more winning, and even two-tier Keir Starmer coming out with this digital ID. I think that's moved things more in our direction than against it, because I think everyone who hates that are saying they hate that, and that's most British people. I think do I think the British people are perfect? No, of course not. I don't, not at all. But you know what? There's a lot of really good men and girls in Britain. There are many.
Yeah,
and
you never need.
We're winning. We're winning.
Yeah, you only need a few good people to change things in any country.
That's true. Yeah, you need a vanguard or whatever. But yeah, I think we're winning. I really do. But you know what? There are bad people around. Of course there are. But I largely ignore them because they're not the majority. Most people are pretty damn good if they're British.
Right. The caveat I would say to that is, okay, you take Russia, for example, in 1917, only a small portion of the population were actually Bolshevik. But because of the apathy of everyone else, they were able to win. So even that small portion, I'd say at the most 20% of the population support basically Starmer, basically the system in terms of what they're doing. No more than that. But that's still 20% too many.
I'd say we're more in the position of the Bolsheviks coming to power rather than the other way around. We're the insurgent force.
Yeah. We're the insurgents. This is true. Morgoth, what do you think in terms of the modern British people, do you think they're mostly good, or what's your opinion?
I tend to think that they're mostly passive, sort of dead weight as well. To be honest, but I think especially after the Boris wave, that's changed the dynamic. So if you think of it like, if you go back to say 20, remember when everybody 2003, 2004, and you had all of the Polish people coming in and whatnot. Remember that was the bulk of the immigration in the 2000s. Like back then, there was a certain kind of status to defending immigration. That was, I mean, I had a mate who's totally far right now, who I've known forever, and he used to say how like diverse Newcastle was. It wasn't actually back then very much, but you could get like Algerian food on the quayside or something, and that was like this. Oh, it's so cool now. And so 20 odd years ago, there was a kind of status to defending. You were open minded, you were sophisticated, and everybody went along with that. But the problem is now, after the Boris wave, where the people that they're seeing, and now the demographics are skewed, like much worse. And in the smallest village in Cumbria or a little market town in Dorset, across the country, everybody is seeing some of the, let's just say, the lowest human capital on earth in their spaces. And so there's the defending the pro-immigration position has totally lost its status. It's like this. You're seen more like a lunatic, this kind of corporate lunatic to actually defend the immigration line now. And among people's peers, the peer pressure is now to move further and further to the right. So I do think that people are kind of like sheeple, but what happens is when they begin to move the other way, it becomes to be a bit of a stampede, and you can see that with Reform's poll numbers, where now the position everybody wants to hold more and more is to be the furthest against immigration and not defend it at all. So they're still sheeple. It's just that they're running in our direction, and it's good. I mean, another thing, I did an article on Substack a couple of weeks back, where another thing that's changed, which I think we don't speak about enough, is that we do have this kind of new generation of kind of booted and suited, slick people. One of the things is that because we operate under such draconian speech codes and speech laws, is that everybody had to be a bit more sophisticated and nuanced in how they put things across. And what that meant was that it would become what I would say mom-friendly. It was, my mother would not be offended by it, by the way that it was put across, but she would be offended by outright sort of grug, sort of slurs and all the rest of it. And so what, again, you get this kind of high status, sort of sophisticated aura around you, the way you deliver. Not me so much as a lot of these young lads that you see coming through. And I think that's good. I think, and the article I was saying was that it becomes Spectre, where when you read what Hope Not Hate or The Guardian, what they're tearing their hair out is that it's like the far right is now not like the BNP in the old days, where you had one institution, one organization, which they could fully unload on. It's as if like we've got our people just embedded in everywhere in all institutions, and which is true.
Yeah, 100.
Which is actually
Morgoth, could I ask you, do you remember that TV series? You might be too young, but do you remember that TV series called Auf Wiedersehen, Pet? About the guys who went to Germany and were in the building trade.
Yeah, I watched it. I was a small boy when it first. I was very young, but yeah, I remember obviously. Yeah,
and I think Oz was the main character. He was a Geordie, basically.
Yeah.
and the other guy was the bloke who used to be in the series that replaced
Inspector Morse.
yeah,
Kevin Wheatley.
Kevin Wheatley, yeah, also another Geordie guy. But yeah, I used to love that series. I thought it was great, but you know what? It wouldn't work today because back in those days, you would go to like Newcastle or the Northeast, or you would go to the Midlands. I remember there was a Birmingham dude who was a character. There was there was a Liverpool dude who was a character, and there was a Cockney guy who was a character. But you couldn't do that anymore because those cities are not like that anymore. You know, they've just been destroyed in the meantime.
I mean, yeah, and they did actually do different versions of the like sequels and stuff, even in the like early 2000s, and they had it where I think like Oz or Tim or somebody had like a half-caste son or whatever.
Yeah,
but back then it was like that, where you had all these construction contractors, and you would have like the Brummie one. There was like three or four Geordies.
Yep.
You had Pat Roach, who was, where was Pat Roach from?
He was from Somerset or somewhere like that.
He had a big
somewhere in the
accent,
south,
didn't he? Yeah. And you had the one from Liverpool, Moxie, I think he was called, and you had the Cockney called Wayne, who was a junkie. And so and the idea was, it was set in Germany, but the idea was you got a flavour of all the different regions of Britain, with their different kind of way of speaking. And I mean, I'll kind of lived a little bit like that in the early 2000s when I was working for an agency in Holland, and at one point there was like 17 lads living in one house. It was an absolute shit show. There was like blocks being brought. Obviously, I was from the northeast contingent. There was two other contingents from Liverpool, another one from Manchester, and it wasn't a pleasant time. I'll say that. It wasn't the happiest time of my life. Like I'll say that. Like, just loads of fucking blokes working 12-hour shifts and I don't have fond memories of that sort of 3 or 4 months or whatever it was. Like,
sounds like a migrant hotel.
Yeah, it's kind of though, guys. Like I kind of remember something similar to that when I was in South Africa, and we had guys from all over the UK in my regiment, and actually we got on pretty well, to be honest. Because like there were Welsh guys who were absolutely fanatical Welsh rugby union fans and people like that, but we got on great, to be honest. We did, and because the other guys, like because it was basically an Afrikaner military system, because we were all Brits, we got on really well, not a problem. So yeah, I get it. But back in the day, that was like kind of like what Britain was like. There was always this enormous difference in accents and to some degree in history going around the country. But everyone got on great, as far as I can remember. Like I used to spend a lot of time in Glasgow. And Glasgow is a pretty rough town, and you can go and watch Callum going up to Glasgow with Count Dankula, and Callum is saying, "Oh, I'd be a bit scared to go here, there, or everywhere." I went all over Glasgow in the 1980s. As an Englishman, and you can hear my accent, boys, I'm really an Englishman. Never got in any problems whatsoever. I mean, all right, I'm 6'2" and 200 pounds, but you know, whatever. I never got in any problems. You could go anywhere in England, and providing you weren't an arsehole, you know, yeah, and if you were an arsehole, you could get in problems anywhere, including in London, where I came from. Many mouthy Londoners who got in problems. But in general, you could go anywhere in Britain and you wouldn't get in problems because British people were British people. And providing you were reasonably respectful and you didn't do nasty things to God, you didn't get in problems. You just didn't. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to have to get going, Duke, so I'll see you later.
Morgoth, thank you very, very much for joining us. We have a little tiny stream, and thank you for joining. Would you like to plug anything?
You can find me Morgoth's Review on Substack and on YouTube. So, yeah, that's it. All right. See you later.
Thanks, mate. Go on. Yeah. I don't know. I think Britain used to be a pretty civilized place, where you could go anywhere in the country, and provided you didn't behave like an asshole, you'd be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, guys. Tharium, anything you want to plug?
Sunday stream tomorrow on Brutus's channel. Find me on Twitter if you want. That's about it.
Mate, I really shouldn't keep letting you plug Brutus's channel, but all right. Okay. I shouldn't really.
Okay.
He never invites me, mate. So yeah, whatever.
You've got an invite if you want.
Do I want one? That's the story. But anyway, yeah, Mitch, anything you want to plug, Mitch?
Nah, not for me.
All right, guys. I'm gonna play us out with a tune if it works. Let's see if it does. It's always a magical mystery to her. Let's see. Mm-hmm.
Draw near, you gallant seamen, while I the truth unfold of his gallant naval victory as ever yet was told. The 2nd day of April upon the Baltic main, and Nelson and his gallant men fresh laurels they did gain, with their thundering and roaring, rattling and roaring, thundering and roaring bombs. Brave Nelson volunteered, and 12 ships formed a line. In the roads of Copenhagen he began his grand design. His towers with usual courage their valour did display. They destroyed the Danish navy upon that glorious day. With their thundering and roaring, rattling and roaring, thundering and roaring bombs. And when the navy we destroyed, we anchored near the town. And with our bombs were fully bent to burn the city down. At 10 that glorious morning, the fight began, it's true. And Copenhagen was ablaze before the clock struck 2. With their thundering and roaring, rattling and roaring, thundering and roaring bombs. For the loss of an arm and an eye, bold Nelson do declare. The foes of his country, not an inch of them he'll spare. The dainty made to rue the day that ever Paul did join. 8 ships he burnt and 4 he sunk, and took 6 of the line. With their thundering and roaring, rattling and roaring, thundering and roaring bombs. Here's a health to gallant Nelson, the wonder of the world. All for his country's glory his thunder loud as howled. Here's a health to his bold valiant tars who ploughed the raging sea, and who never were afraid to face the daring enemy. With their thundering and roaring, rattling and roaring, thundering and roaring bombs.
All right. That was, of course, a song about Nelson, but it was a sailor song about Nelson. So, yeah. We've got a couple of super chats, which we are going to go and address. Davey, fuck off. All right. What you just said there. But anyway, we do have a couple of super chats. So let's deal with those. First of all, Rud Three Trees for $15 says, "Evening, gents. If they do manage to pass the ID stuff, what are the chances it would ever be repeated by future governments, do you think? Would be funny if it passes and you get Steve Laws or similar as a PM next." Guys, anything to say on that?
Yeah, it's like if there's nothing stopping them from reform just going like. Cause I think who was it who said if you have like a group or people asking for moderate stuff and a mistake, just clamps down on them so that when they come into power later on, let's say, they just get more maximalist in their sort of intentions as well as what they would do in power. So in other words, let's say they do this digital audit and they clamp down hard. What's stop Farage from just going total war on the left? Well, I mean, I say stop him. I mean, you won't have to boss up on Farage because he's too much of a boomer about this. But let's say someone of our persuasion, because I've got no compunction in saying if it was me in charge, yeah, it'd be a case of total war.
Yeah,
on everyone who pushed this and everyone who has always been supporting the system. Total lustration, as Paul was saying.
100, Mitch. Tharium, anything to say on that?
I mean, we did mention this a bit earlier. Like every party except Labour is against this, so
yeah,
they should just repeal it. But when they actually get into power, will they is another question. We'll see. But yeah, there is a lot of opposition to it, so we'll see.
I think all patriotic English and British men are against this. But
yeah,
absolutely. Gerin, who is a regular supporter of this channel, sends us $5 USD and just says hello. Gerin, thank you so much. Your regular support of the channel is much appreciated. So yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. All right. I can't thank Morgoth enough for publicizing and coming on this stream. I have a little British stream and Morgoth joins us from time to time, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you very much to my guests, Mitch, AI, Tharium, and of course Morgoth. Go all, guys. We will see you on Wednesday, British time, when we will have some British historical topic or other. Come and check us out. We do some interesting ones, and the ones that are best are the ones that I would never think of. That one of my people on my Discord says, let's do this. So we do. So yeah, take care, boy. Guys, and in the meantime, never let the bastards grind you down, because we are going to win in the end. See you later.